Oh, look at that. I'm on the wrong thing. Oh, man. I'm an amateur at this, aren't I? Okay. Hey, guys, this is Terrence, and we're here at Real Reefing, and we are on another live stream. I know it's only 6 days since the last one I did, but I'm going to be going to Reefapalooza, and I'm leaving tomorrow. So this is a day early so that I can get this live stream in because I have stuff to tell you guys, and you know, want to get the info out there and have a good stream. So today I'm going to be talking about real reefing, obviously, and the reality of my Apex. And it's always been somewhat of a cobbler whose children have no shoes, in that, I do things like probably many of you do, not in a perfect way. I have stuff in my Apex probably not set up the right way. I probably don't back it up as much as I should. I probably don't do a lot of things like I should. And so because of that, I'm going to kind of reveal it to you guys, and I'm going to have Derrick Picker from Reef Automation here with me in just a second, and we're going to dig through it, and he's going to make fun of me. He's going to dig through the stuff, tell me all the stuff that I'm doing wrong, and yeah, so it's going to be real, right? And real reefing. And in addition to that, I'm going to kind of discuss, there's been obviously a lot of Apex stuff out there that's happened in the last couple of weeks, and, definitely, some of the stuff is, well, it's new to everybody. Some of it is obviously not going to be new to me because I worked there when a lot of this stuff was happening and was obviously involved in a lot of it, early, mid, etc. But, the first thing I want to get out there to people in terms of all the Apex stuff is that, I want to make it completely clear. I love my Apex. I still love my Apex. I still love all of my Neptune Systems products. The Apex is the best monitoring control system out there for reef keepers, period. And I think it will be for quite some time. And as far as other products are, they're all in the best of group of other products on the market of their class. I can't say every product Neptune Systems makes is the best of class, but it's in the group of the best of class, in my opinion. So I wanted to make that, at least abundantly clear that, I'll bleed orange for a long time. That's for sure. But one thing, too, though, to note is I am no longer any kind of an insider. In fact, I'm pretty much, it's funny how things change. I went from the ultimate insider to the ultimate outsider. So I'm no longer part of the Neptune Systems insider program or any of these things. So, feel free to ask me all of the stuff that's coming along, and I can tell you I have no clue whatsoever. That's definitely what's out there. Now, I want to welcome all of you guys to the stream. Thank you so much for all of you regulars like Antonio from Vivid Creative Aquatics. Obviously, Greg Carroll's on the stream. Thank you, Greg, for joining me. I appreciate it. Sid, Sid's always on the streams that I do. Got Devin from Reef Dudes out there. Absolutely. And, we've got people like DJ Mike Fury that says I should chuck the Apex and go hydros. Don't know about that. I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. No shade thrown to hydros necessarily, but like I said, definitely bleed orange, and I'm pretty heavily invested in the technology on the Apex side. But anyway, today, so we're going to talk about my stuff, pretty much all of the the stuff that I've got in my Apex. We're also going to talk about the new A3 Apex that was announced. It's a whole line of Apexes. We're going to chat about that a little bit later. Wanted to also, and we're going to be talking about the latest AOS, which is the Apex operating system that just dropped recently. If you guys are Apex users, you might have seen it and updated to it, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Also, there's a brand new version of the iOS app that's also dropped and out there. We're going to discuss that a little bit later in the stream as well. It's not going to be on the front side of the stream. Terrence's embarrassment is going to be on the front side of the stream when I get with Derrick here in a minute. The thing, too, that we have on this stream is we do have participation on this stream. I do have the ability to bring people in and chat, and we will be able to have people in along with Derrick as well. If any of you have a question or you want to sound off or anything like that, the URL is at the bottom. Just realize that when you do pop into the green room, so to speak. I may not see you or address you, and you may or may not come on the stream, or you may not come on the stream for maybe 20 minutes or so when it's the appropriate time to bring you in. So please at least understand that much. If you do want to join, though, the URL is down there. Make sure to put your name in when you go to the page. And that goes for any of you, you big timers out there that are on the stream. If you guys want to join in, especially later on in the stream, please do so. This stream is going to be a little bit longer than I usually do because we have a lot of content, a lot of discussion, and I think that a lot of our Apex type viewers out there, users out there, appreciate the longer, more involved conversation. I know that everybody thinks I'm just completely this marketing guy that was pitching products, but I do love all of the products. I do use all of the products, and I do love playing around with them and having other people show me things. And, if it takes a little bit longer on this stream, I'm good with it. So the first thing, if you guys have any questions straight away, before I even pull in Derrick into the stream here, feel free to put them into the comments. We are, obviously loving everything from everybody out there. We've got a good stream content already, and if you guys could share it around while we're live, because we're going to be on for a little while, that would be appreciated. But the most important thing you guys can help me out with is hitting the subscribe button, obviously. Hit the like button. Obviously, I see some of you have already done that. Much appreciated. But definitely subscribe and hit the bell. Why? Well, we're going to be at an upcoming event, myself, my wife, my dog, Teddy, which you saw. We're going to be at Reefapalooza, which is coming up this week, and it's one of the events that I've been to second longest. There was another event called Max that I went to first when I got back into reef keeping, way back in 2008 or something. And then I went to a Reefapalooza, and it's a great event. It's in Southern California. If you are anywhere nearby Southern California or a short flight, even like Vegas or Phoenix or whatever, get on a plane, go in. You're going to see one of the best events put on ever by the Southern California Marine Aquarium Society, and they've been doing it by years. Greg Carroll, who's on the stream here, props go out to him. He's been supporting that and helping those guys do that for years, along with many other regulars like Cody Bean and others who have done it for a long time. So props to them. Much appreciated for them putting that on. We will be driving down to see family first tomorrow, and then we will hit up the show Saturday morning. So hopefully we'll see some of you there. If you see me, pull me aside, say hi. I'd love to see you guys face to face. After that event, we will be, in a couple of weeks, flying back out to the East Coast, out to Pennsylvania, pick up the motorhome, the RV, and start our drive. Some sightseeing for us first. Maybe a few fish stops along the way, and then ultimately ending up at MACNA, the first MACNA in a couple years in person, and it's going to be in Milwaukee. Can't say I'm super excited about the destination, but be in the motorhome, and we'll stay at some campground. I don't even know what yet, but that is the, I think, second weekend in September. So if you can get to another great event, it would be MACNA. MACNA differs from Reefapalooza in that Reefapalooza doesn't have a whole lot of educational content, although whether it's from my poking or otherwise, Ryan from BRS is now picking up the mantle again for speaking at Reefapaloozas. Hopefully there'll be more great speakers like that. But MACNA is known for having a lot of great content, and definitely something to go to if you want to get all kinds of education on reef keeping, on coral preservation, on fish care, all kinds of different topics to be a better aquarist, a better marine aquarist for sure. So that's out in Milwaukee, and we will be there as well. Anyway, enough of the intros and everything. Again, hit that subscribe, share it around, and that little bell thing will let you know, because I'll be at Reefapalooza. I'm probably going to live stream. I've got a little product here. I can't show it to you guys. It's right down below the screen here that that I've got an early release of. I'll probably talk about that maybe on a run-up stream before we go into Reefapalooza. And so make sure you hit the bell, make sure you subscribe, make sure you do all of that. Okay, so without further ado, and it's funny how people spell ado with A-D-O. I don't know, that just came into my mind. Oh, you know what? I have something else too that's funny that I'm going to put, where is it? Here it is. My son sent me this meme, and we'll see if anybody gets this meme, because it cracked me up. He sent it to me today. The kids these days, they're all into the memes, and my son's big time into music. And so he sent this one to me. So if any of you guys get what that is, put it in the comments and let everybody else know, because it's probably not straightforward for a lot of you. Anyway, without further ado, let me bring in Derrick Picker. Let's make sure we get Derrick. Derrick, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
What's
man.
up?
Welcome, Derrick Picker from Reef Automation, reefautomation.com, @reefautomation.
reefautomation.net.
Oh, see? Oh, man. What happened to the com?
Sorry.
You didn't buy
Someone
took it, and you didn't try to go get it. Okay. Well,
they wanted like $3,000. I'm not paying $3,000 for that.
Oh, okay. Well, Derrick lives out in Arizona in the hot lands, the now monsoon lands. It's monsoon season.
Rough. Yeah.
And he is all things automation. He's been an Apex guy for the longest time. If you go and look at one of my previous videos, you'll see us visiting Derrick's place, seeing his aquariums, his reptiles, how he's kind of connected it all together, and hear from Derrick there. But he also runs live streams every what day? Do you have a regular live stream, or are you just doing them kind of irregularly?
I try to get them on Monday evenings, but it's been difficult lately.
Okay.
But yes, Monday evenings are technically the planned days.
Yeah. So did you know what that meme was?
Something about Morrison's gym.
Oh, you read the comments. I asked you if you knew it. But yes, John Kidd put it out there first, Van Morrison's gym instead of Jim Morrison's van. So I thought that was really funny. Yeah, it's kind of a music geek, I guess, thing. But anyway, so Derrick, I got you here today to, I already shared my Apex with you. And, again, this is Apex reality. So I do a lot of things, probably a lot of complicated things on my Apex, but I don't keep a tidy house, let's just say, in the way that I keep my Apex. Sometimes because I'm testing things out or playing with things, and then I put things places, and then I say, what the hell? Or I know there's a better way of doing something, but I'm just lazy. So you had a chance to check it out, to look at my Apex?
Yes,
All
definitely.
Right. So like I said, guys, we're going to be talking about the A3 Apex, the new level sensors, the new AOS that dropped, the new iOS app, all of that after we go through all of my nonsense and garbage here. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. It'll be a little bit later in the stream. But for now, I'm going to bring up, let's bring up first. Let's see here. Don't know which one is going to come up first. Oh, there it is. All right.
Okay. So
there is my Apex dashboard on a computer, and it's important to know. Yeah, so there's going to get some comment here. So Derrick already said, oh, no, Derrick may have a wire management heart attack. I feel it coming. Yeah, we're not going to go down into my room, because that would be the epitome of embarrassing at this point, because although I have done a video before where I tidied up all my wiring and stuff like that, and I think I did it with Neptune Systems at the time, but it's it just gets you just can't keep it that way. It's just not in my DNA.
Well, Devin, the person who just said that, he just redid all his wire management. It looks really good. But yeah, I gave him a lot of crap about it too.
Well, I guess that gives you a reason to come out here and visit sometime, Derrick. Like I visited your place, and then I can put you to work.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring all my tools and zip ties, and spend a couple hours and shoot myself.
I'm gonna call you on that, and then when you're done, you can go jump in the pool or whatever, But anyway, this is how I have it set up, and I'm going to briefly discuss kind of what's here, and then you hop in after that, and you can kind of talk about what you see or issues or questions off the top of your head or what have you. Okay. So one of the things I do often is when I'm working with something, I move those outlets right to the top of all of my graphs that I have here, and the most important graphs that I look at, so that when I'm playing with them and trying to test them and test the code or whatever, I often will have them there. And truth be told, before this stream, I actually deleted about 6 or 7 of them because it was even way too embarrassing, some of the other stuff that was there. But you'll see here I've got the fans. I've got a small fan and a white fan. I have a fan, one of those like little turbo black fans, and I've screwed it to the wall behind my sump downstairs. We'll get a tour of that at some point in the future, and it points straight down onto my sump, and it comes on when the it gets too hot down in my crawl space. It's not really crawl space; it's kind of like an unfinished basement. And in addition to that, I have another one which is just a cheap stand-up fan that doesn't even have the plastic grate on the front of it anymore. It's just got this spinning propeller on the front. It's like super probably dangerous, and it's sitting on top of a salt bucket blowing across the top of the sump as well. So that's what those are, and they should come in. I think they come in at different temperatures. Did you look at this? So this one comes in at 78.5 and goes off at 78, and then the other one, I think it comes in a different. No, it's the same. Okay, so they're both the same right now. This summertime. That's probably
so. What are these fans for?
Cooling a tank, man. We don't use chillers
Why
in
not
California.
Just get a chiller?
Oh my gosh, why would you do that? It's so much extra failure points. Number one, cost. Number two,
I have had 3 chillers, one of which for 12 years with
Sure.
0 issues in Arizona.
Sure, but
Just
here's the
saying.
deal. Here's the deal, right? First of all, they use too much power. Second of all, they can fail. You have more connections that can fail on your on your tank, and then you have the overall cost, and they end up, in my opinion, also like it cools stuff down too fast too. It's just like it's just all you need most of the time is like my black fan. I know I had these two on separate temperature ranges so that I wouldn't have them both coming on before, but it definitely works really well. I would recommend to everybody stay away from chillers if you can, unless you have a super hot environment like you're in Florida or something like that with humidity and you can't get the evaporation. So now, to Derrick's point, one thing that the chillers do that is better, that could make me go there, Derrick, is when you evaporate that tank to get the cooling, that creates moisture down in whatever space you have, and that can be a negative.
Yeah.
So, but that's
Probably
why I have those.
Probably a lot of salt buildup everywhere too, huh?
No, not really. Not really, because the salt doesn't evaporate up into the air. If you get spray, like if you have a lot of water movement, and then you get like micro spray in the air, and then it blows it around, that can happen. But the salt doesn't evaporate; just the water evaporates. So.
Yeah, I've seen people with fans over their sumps, and the sumps, of course, depending on your sump, make a lot of
splashing,
water movement, splashing, and the fans just blow it all over the place.
Yeah, that absolutely can happen, and I do have salt creep on the pipes and stuff going into the the sump right near where it's really eating it. But anyway, that's that. So anyway, that's why I put those things up at the top, and then I have other like virtual outlets that I use for doing things like cleaning my waves, where they've got a different mode that they run in when they're cleaned in, and I put them in. And I've done videos on this before too. I use a 1 gallon jug from BRS and put citric acid in it, and then I leave them connected and just drop them in there and hit the clean wave button, and then my waves go into that mode. So, and Derrick agrees. Derrick says yes, electricity, and
Derrick, you mean Devin?
Sorry, Devin. Yes. God, you guys got D's.
Oh, don't ask what my electricity bill is. You saw my house.
Yeah, well, I just got solar, so
idea.
I'm really happy camper with that right now. In fact, I don't use my air conditioning as much now because I know how much it really costs me. So I go even further.
What do we got? We got 4 air conditioners now.
Oh my goodness, I don't even want to know. Yeah. Anyway, so that's why I have all of these basically of like what I'm paying attention to mostly. And I've got 2 different temperatures. I got one in the fish room and I've got one in the tank itself. And so you can kind of see they're close, and that's about all you can ask for. And obviously pH, and then I use a salinity probe. And right now today, because my ATO, I have the ATK, and the hole is intentionally small in it, but it probably also has gotten clogged up a little bit, so it doesn't keep up with the evaporation from my fans. So every once in a while, right now, I'm going down and dumping in salt, fresh water, and that's why you see it goes down. It's down at 31.4. It actually needs to be a little bit higher than that, but I overfilled it so that it'll come back Fish and corals don't really care that much. I usually keep it around 33, 33 and a half in my tank. And my salinity probe is really consistent. You know, if you put it in the right spot and you don't have bubbles in it and all the other things, it just stays super consistent.
Yeah, I've never had issues with mine. All three of them. And I've mentioned it on my stream multiple times. As long as you know where to put them, and as long as you calibrate them properly, I mean, they really work well. Um, it's just I get a lot of people asking me, well, what did you do? I go, well, I put it in a place where there's literally very little water movement, and that seems to be the trick. At
Okay.
least that's in my case. I have them all in my
That's the
sump
opposite of a lot of
behind.
people's experience, just so you know, they have it where there is a lot of water movement.
Yeah, and I just put them right in the corner of my sump where very little water gets moved there. And I have seen people also put little, what are those maxi jets right
Yeah.
underneath the
Yeah.
and just blow onto the
And there's
salinity
the thing
probe,
that
and
I
that helps
helped
too.
Antonio, do, which is the little, adapter thing on there to help
Hmm.
push, flow through it. And that's helpful. But, overall there's other issues too with a stray electrical and things like this that also will throw it off. And so it's just picky. So anything you see strange there on that calcium reactor pH?
Well, I noticed that right away, and it's funny you mention it because you actually taught me this idea a long time ago, which was to basically reduce the um, what's the word I'm looking for? The effluent amount during the evening time, and then during the day, do instead of reducing the flow rate, you just reduce the amount of alkalinity that's in the water by adjusting the
Concentration.
pH.
Yeah, the concentration.
Concentration. There you go. That's the word.
Yeah, so I basically regulate my calcium reactor two ways. One is obviously the water flow rate, which I have a way to do that and we can talk about. But the other way is at night, obviously corals aren't taking up alkalinity like they are during the day. So
Mhm.
At nighttime, my alkalinity in my calcium reactor rises up to 6.85 and during night, and then 6.75 or whatever it is, 6.7 during the day. And that helps regulate my, obviously my alkalinity, so there's not a whole lot of variance throughout the day in the alkalinity. I did have recently, because I just changed my media, which that's another variable in a calcium reactor, is how much media you have in there, obviously, the mass amount. And so over time it goes down, and you adjust your settings, and then you refill your media, and then all of a sudden you get a spike in your in your alkalinity. And the Trident, or any alkalinity monitoring, if you're running a reef tank today and you're not running alkalinity monitoring, you're missing out. Period.
Oh yeah,
Period.
absolutely.
100%. I mean, I am, partial to the Trident for a myriad of reasons, but alkalinity monitoring of any type will up your game, for sure. So anything yet you
And
see
headaches. I
that's
mean, headaches and stress.
anything
Like,
yet that you
it's
see that's kooky?
amazing. Oh yeah. Oh
What?
yeah.
Give me one right away. Give me one right away.
You're gonna probably think I'm crazy. I have never in my, I don't know how many years I've had Fusion, ever found the reason to take up space by putting the voltage here of the 832. First of all, I just don't see. I don't ever look at it. I have alerts. I just don't ever look at it. It just takes up space.
These
Um,
right here, right? You're talking about these tiles, like right here in
yeah.
the middle.
Mhm.
So yeah, so you're probably right. It isn't something that I look at that often. Probably rarely do I look at it, except when I'm probably messing around with something and want to know if an outlet's on or if it's running the way that
Okay,
it
so
should.
that's where I have an idea for you. So
Okay.
this is what I do, and I don't know if anybody else does this. Fusion, I have all my important stuff, but my local dashboard, which is completely independent, I have all these other things that are when I'm working on the tank. Like I have all of my flow sensors, for example, listed in there so I can work on the flow sensors, but I don't have them listed on my Fusion because I'm never going to use them on the Fusion. I'm going to only use them when I am using my dashboard. And that's kind of what I've done is I've taken all the important stuff and put it on my Fusion, and all the not so important stuff put it on my dashboard.
Now,
And I find that to be better.
on your local dashboard, do you find it laggy at all?
Yeah, there's a little bit.
Yeah, that's
but,
what bothers me about it. Why? I mean, when you start to get a
but
lot
how
of stuff
much do
on
you
there,
use it?
that's what I mean. That's why I don't use it because because the lag. If I put all of the stuff on there, it would probably drive me nuts. I mean, the refresh on it and everything else. That's why.
But you don't. But that's the thing. You don't use it. You only use it when you're doing maintenance or when you're doing something where you need to view stuff. That's why the EB832 information I don't think is important. I mean, I could see where the wave information might be important because it gives you the error in the upper right hand corner.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't really care what the temperature is. I don't really care. Like on a daily basis, obviously, I have alerts set up for things. The example that I bring up is on your upper right hand corner. You have your calcium feed that tells you how much milliliters that you're putting in a day. If you have this set up and it's been running for weeks, it's going to be the same every day. So I don't see the point of needing to see that. So it takes up so much room in your dashboard, which brings up the whole conversation about, well, how do we reduce clutter on the dashboard? How do we get to the important stuff?
It's a super good point. Super good point. And to further your point, and blast me even more, is
no blasting. I haven't seen your wire management.
Yeah. So if you look right now, both of those doses right there don't have anything that's flowing through them, and that's because I've gone to an alternative method for feeding both my calcium reactor as well as my sulfur denitrator. So both of those and those 4 slots below them all don't need to be there on my dashboard anymore, and that's kind of the the cleanup, right? The housekeeping that I don't do, that I'm horrible at, right? That I just leave stuff and then scroll past it, leave it and scroll past it, leave it and scroll past it. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons too, I think I probably do that is, when we first put together Apex Fusion, there wasn't a whole lot of devices, right? Wasn't a whole lot of outlets. No. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff. And so this methodology up here of your tray and having it scroll left and right and everything.
That's my favorite. Oh, my goodness.
It wasn't that big of a deal, right? Because you didn't have that much. Once you get a lot of stuff, this is really cumbersome. And this particular UI doesn't serve well, in my opinion, for what it was originally intended to do. It just kind of, the Apex and the ecosystem kind of grew out of it. And that's probably part of my reticence to moving things, because to get them back to use them means I got to go pull this open, search through it. And on my phone, the colors are hard to read on my phone because I'm colorblind.
The phone is the worst. The phone is the worst for doing that. You got to keep scrolling and
scroll.
And imagine, I mean, I don't know how many modules you have. I have 40 something ridiculous modules in my tank, and you could sit here searching and searching and searching.
Yes.
And what I've always recommended, and I don't know if this is something they're going to do in the future, but I really think there should be an option, if they continue to use this, is to be able to go to the outlets and just there'd be a check mark on the right side that says on the dashboard, not on the dashboard.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Be that simple.
There's a lot of different ways I think you could attack this. One of the things too I want to bring up for people is when Derrick is talking about the local dashboard, one of the biggest mistakes people probably make if they try it. First of all, I think vast majority of people don't even know it exists. Okay,
that's true.
Second of all, they wouldn't know when or why to use it. Okay, let's say your internet's out, you want to get to your Apex, that's why you use it. Third, if people do go to get to their local dashboard and somebody tells them how to do it, they, especially now, because it's easier to rename your Apex than it ever used to be. Every Apex used to be called the Apex, right? Its name, its host name, which is also a vestigial thing that's really weird and interesting. But the name of the Apex itself is what you have to use to get to local. So I know there's a ton of confused people out there, and I've typed it myself a number of times. Well, I should know better.
For you really good network guys out there, such as myself, I believe,
It's
I'm able to access the
0.02%
local.
of the
Yeah, I mean, there's a way, and I could teach everyone that you can access your local dashboard from outside the house, just like your Fusion.
Sure, but I'm not talking about
Um,
that, and I'm not necessarily
oh, okay.
getting there. What I'm talking about is even inside your house, people go and type apex.local because that's what they read everywhere. But the fact
Mhm.
is they renamed their Apex to, Jim's Apex,
And
and
then
it's
they can't
really
get to it.
they can't get to it because every doc they
Right.
read says apex.local, and everybody says go to apex.local. And for a lot of people, it is apex.local, but it's really Jim's apex.local now because he renamed it. And so that's a good thing to take if you guys are taking this in. If you ever want to go to the local dashboard, it's the name that you see there in the upper corner, upper left corner, .local. So, okay, so I have some other comments that come in, right, that I want to address. First of all, Devin from Reef Dude says, why are your switches...
I was going to say the same thing.
Oop, what's happened? I got to lock this in because otherwise it's going to create...
I was going to
nightmare for
definitely
me.
say the same thing.
Hang on, I got to make this a little bigger and then lock it, or I'm going to have an issue. Oh, that's good enough. Okay, so because if I scroll, that's what happens. Hang on. Now I got the stupid preview up here. Okay, so what about all of these that are off when they should be on? Well, for the most part, people who say everything should be in an auto state is correct. You should not be turning on and off your outlets by hitting off and on for the most part. But the fact is that you have things often like virtual outlets, which are these, which would be nice if they also looked a little bit different, wouldn't it? That you know which ones are the virtual outlets versus real outlets. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But that's why those are in the off state. I have other devices which I only want to have and run certain times of the year, quite possibly, and like during winter, right? I have my heater here as a backup. It shouldn't be on the dashboard here, but something we'll get into in a minute is it isn't on my dashboard there on my phone. So we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, I noticed your left column is about 3 pages long,
yes.
Whereas the rest of yours are not.
Yes.
And I understand why, and I can give you some tips on that, but that's okay.
We'll hit that in a second. If you notice, I have these dose off for reasons I told you. That's why they're in the off state. These probably should be in the auto state. These are my calcium reactor pump, my sulfur denitrator pump, and my skimmer pump. Those things probably should be in the auto. Again, this is why I'm doing this, guys. This is reality. This is the reality of an Apex and a true Apex user. That's how it ends up. Some things
I should share mine with you so you can show mine.
So some things that should work the way that should be working right, sometimes they're not for a myriad of reasons, like my autofill on my ATO reservoir that I have, my big 100-gallon, right? And so this one says freshwater solenoid. That one I'm now only doing manually. And so that's why that one is in the off. So there are reasons still to have certain outlets in the off state. It's not a purity kind of thing, in my opinion. There's that. I
mean, for me, it would scare me. I mean, that's me. I don't know about people watching, but if I'm looking at my Apex and seeing a bunch of on stuff and a bunch of off stuff, I'm gonna be scared. I'm gonna be, did I forget to turn something on? Did I forget to turn something off? I leave the house and I look at my Apex. I go, why is this on? Why is this off? Now, obviously, you've done a very good job of labeling everything, which is very helpful. I see a lot of systems where they don't even label them.
Oh,
They
yeah.
just have outlet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's like,
or they have the default names still for all of the
right.
the outlets on an EB832 and whatnot, and they're not using them yet, but they still left them with their default. And I usually put empty.
But that would scare me. That's how I look at it, because at least if it's in auto, I know that I program something, it's going to do what it's supposed to do, and I can't forget to turn it off or on. And that's been my concern with on and off. And I've actually mentioned this, I don't know if it's to you, but I've mentioned to Neptune in the past, there should be an ability to disable the off and on statement and just have it run auto in certain situations. I think it would be beneficial, because I've seen so many people online specifically or PM me, and they can't get something to work, and they can't get something to work, and then they look in their
they have it in off.
Scrolly, they have it in that scrolly thingy,
yeah,
and it's off.
Right. Because it'll put it up there in whatever state it happened to be in when you put it up there.
Right, exactly. Um,
What else did I do here?
let me look. So, I mean, so
Well,
for me,
why don't you look for a little bit more? I'm going to answer another question here, and then you get ready with your next one, okay?
okay,
So, Reef Dudes asks, what are the alternative methods? And what he's talking about are, I used to use, so the backup here is that most people have used for the longest time peristaltic pumps, or some people use a manifold to feed their calcium reactor, or other reactor like a sulfur denitrator. And everybody runs around and talks about how you need to have a continuous duty pump so it can run continually, or it's not going to work your calcium. It's all bunk. It's all completely false.
right,
Maybe on the tiniest of tiny calcium reactors, it might be the case where you've got like a 1 liter or 2 liter calcium reactor. Maybe that's the case, but then the amount of flow that you're going to have also is going to be proportionally less. So I think that's even going to be just fine. So for the longest time, I've run a dose to basically, push water into my calcium reactor and into my sulfur denitrator, and it's worked just fine, not a problem. And it's actually a very handy way to adjust how much flow you want to have go through there. And I can fine tune everything, especially with this alkalinity monitoring I'm talking about, again, with me with the Trident. Now, it does have a downside. It's noisy as hell, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Because you're running, a faster speed on the pump, and it's intermittent, which sometimes can be an issue. My sump is below our bedroom in the the crawl space below, and weird how your brain works. I just got used to it. It didn't even really. It never even phased me.
I'm used to it too. I'm in the garage and I hear it, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I don't even care
it's
anymore.
weird how your
But it is loud.
brain, it just totally masks it. But in addition to that, obviously, pump heads aren't cheap, and they do fail, and they don't fail in a nice way. They start leaking everywhere, and so I was like, So the last time I had one fail, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something different. So I grabbed a PMUP, and I put an adapter on it. The 3/8 to 1/4 inch adapter. I stuck it to the input, and I went in and I created an outlet, right, that just didn't
That's
oscillate,
intermittent.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's off for a minute, and it's on, off for a minute, on for 9 seconds, and basically that's how it runs. Now, when I want to have a little bit more alkalinity in my tank, well, then I'll take the off time down to 50 seconds or 55 seconds. And if I want a little less, I'll take it up to 1 minute and 5 seconds. And then
sounds like an automatic calcium reactor to me.
You could do that. You could fully automate it for sure. You absolutely could, if you did some creative stuff. But the naysayers out there would probably tell me, yeah, but 9 seconds, it's not always going to be the same amount. It might be 40 milliliters one time or 45 milliliters the next time. But guess what? When it does that, 1,000 times a day, it's going to average out. Okay.
And you got such a large tank that there's really no way it's going to, even a couple milliliters off every time is not going to cause your alkalinity to drop or go way up.
Right. So exactly. So if you're pushing in, which mine probably is every minute, probably about 80 to 100 milliliters, if it's off by 10%, it's not going to like blow away my pH in this big calcium reactor, right? Now, again, for a tiny little calcium reactor, would this work? Absolutely not. Would it work for a mid-sized calcium reactor? Absolutely. I totally believe that it would. And if anybody wants to take the time, any of you math guys want to take the time and do the math on what the pH change will be, et cetera, the intermittent pH, all of that, you'll see why it works. And it works just fine. And it's been working now at my house to basically about a year on one. And so now I just got, a leak on my sulfur denitrator one. I took it off, stuck a PMUP on there, and away it goes. And now, because I'm not just Neptune Systems, obviously, there's another pump from Seache that I think would work really well for this as well. Because obviously the PMUP, you have to have one of those connections available.
Right.
And if you don't, and you want another little pump, they have a pump called a Me-Mouse, and that little pump I think would work equally as well. Seache is very well known, got great products. So. Anyway, that is why. There you go, Devin. There's the answer to that, and it works. So all of you who are out there buying super expensive peristaltic pumps to run your calcium reactor, you're probably wasting your money and time
I
to
agree.
change and everything else. But
I
there will be a
totally
lot of
agree.
people there that will tell me otherwise. I'm sure they'll tell me that there's some other reason, but guess what? I've already run the tests, so.
So I want to
What's
reply
the
to Greg there.
Oh, okay.
Greg's asking if I'm going to wrap.
No, he said,
You
is
know,
Derrick going? Oh, here's
yeah,
Derrick.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
you with the wrong spelling. It looked like Devin in my brain because it was the same 5
So
letters.
I had a long conversation with my wife about going to MACNA because I really wanted to go to MACNA, and she unfortunately turned that down. So going to RAP is probably going to be also turned down. And isn't it this weekend? Like I'd really have to
Just get
get
on
things.
a Southwest plane and go. Meet me
I
there.
really want to listen. I really want to go. So if you guys want to pay for it, I can go.
Dude, you got all those super chats, man. Just use your super chat money.
No, no, things have
Oh.
changed. So anyway, with
And,
your
by the way, I don't get super chats yet. I need 1,000 subs. So if you're watching
oh,
this,
that's too bad.
get out there and sub. Hit that button down there, as they say, so that so somebody can show me some love at some point, like Derrick. He can get rich off of it. Just kidding.
I just want to go to these shows to meet people, meet my fans, meet my subscribers, talk to you in person, Terrence, talk to all these people I talk to. With this pandemic, it sucks. We haven't seen people in person, and I really want to go. But unfortunately, just financially, I can't do it right now, and I really want to. So
it's
we'll
okay,
see.
man. It's okay. We'll see you. We'll see you at MACNA then. I got to answer one more question, and then I'm expecting you to have something good for me on what I've done wrong. Okay. So Russell Adams
I have
asks
some stuff.
He says, was PMUP a typo? Some programmer wanted to spell PMUP, but it got scrambled as a pump, but it got scrambled as PMUP. I'll give you guys a story on this. I think I've covered it a couple of times elsewhere, but it's okay because it's a fun story. So we had the pump at the company. We had to come up with a name for the pump, and coming up with names is always interesting. And Neptune Systems has a history of having acronyms for products. And for some reason in my head, I always have this commercial from when I was a kid, and you guys can go look it up. It was called Tobar, and the commercial would go, "It's Tobar. It's robot spelled backwards." And so, I always thought it would be funny to name a product to the backwards name of what the product was. And then we had to come up with, what it would spell out. So collectively, I'm pretty sure it was collectively, we had it mean practical multi-purpose utility pump. So there you go.
That's amazing.
So that's the story of the PMUP. Okay, and it's just fun to say, and I love listening to people say that product's name and whatnot. So there you go. There's the answer. All right, Derrick, what am I doing wrong here?
Well, I'm going to give you I think it's great advice, and I think
Okay.
other people might actually use this advice. The one thing that I've always had an issue with Neptune is the alarms.
Okay.
Alarms, emails. The problem is the alarms and emails, they give you one. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
And sometimes
Sequentially
the alarms
prioritized.
correct. And sometimes the alarms, like in my case, I have so many.
There's really
different
two now,
things.
though, isn't there? Let me just make sure there's a correction. There's really two. There's the one hidden built-in one, right, for like your probes and stuff like that. If you check that box on your probe, that's one of them.
I call that the automatic.
Okay.
The automatic, and I call the other one programmed or manual. But yes, I consider those to be automatic alerts. Okay. And unfortunately, they take precedence over everything else, and that causes some major issues.
Yes, it is kind of a weird thing.
The biggest issue for me is, let's talk about a couple different ones. Let's talk about temperature and pH. Temperature, if it gets past, let's say 79, let's say it gets to 79.1, you're going to get an alert.
Okay.
What if that temperature probe is fluctuating? 79, 79.1, 79, 79.1. You're going to get an alert every single time it says 79.1. And you're going to keep getting them over and over and over again.
Right.
Now, the same thing can be said for switches. For instance, ATO switches, for high and low switches, all of that. And sometimes there's just a slight spike and you don't want an alert.
Okay.
So what I've learned to do, and I do this for everything, guys, is I do a virtual outlet for all of my alerts. Now, I know it's cumbersome, but I have a virtual outlet, and I'll explain why. I have a virtual outlet for my high. I have a virtual outlet for my low. I have a virtual outlet for my temperature. I
Oh
have a
my
virtual
God.
outlet. Yes. Now, again, I wish they could change this, but the greatest thing about this is I can put multiple
lines of code in there because you're basically
lines of
nesting the
code,
code. Yeah.
and then I can defer it. So what I can do is then defer. Let's say all of my temperature. I have my Apex running 3 tanks. So let's say all of my
Did you
temperatures.
share your Apex with me? Do you want me to show them or something?
Sure. Let me go up there and do it for you.
Oh, no, it's gonna be heck. Let's do this. Let's go.
Why is it gonna be heck?
Because I don't want to show.
Oh boy.
Shut up. I don't know why I've got that on still. Let's put this in. It should be already in don't bother me mode, but it's not. Okay, so no, because I don't want to show my list of apexes to everybody when I pull you up. That's why.
Oh yeah, that's probably a good idea. But mine's easy. It's Reef Automation.
Yeah, but now I got to find it. Did you add me?
I got to go to authorization here. What's the username? Is just Terrence?
Yeah.
Capital T, or doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Wonder where it is. This is always fun.
So the
Go ahead,
greatest
keep
part
talking.
about what I was saying was for a lot of different things, let's say high and low sensors and things that I obviously need an alert, but I don't need an alert right away because there's a possibility that it spiked. So I'll do a defer, and I can do that inside the email alert. So that way I'm not getting emails constantly for all this different stuff. And then I go into my email alerts. So if you click on email, you'll see them all in there.
Okay, this one right here. Okay.
Yeah. So you see how I said if output on the top there?
Yeah.
So there it is.
Each one of those are your virtual outlets then, right?
That's
and
correct.
Each one of those basically has the code so that you can put any kind of complicated code for buffering it or whatever it is.
So
right?
that brings me up the point based on your system because for an example, I mean, I got tons of stuff in there.
Good Lord, dude. 73 lines in the alarms.
But again, they all have different codes built in. So what's good about
Not all of them, because this one says that one too? CO2, all of these? Oh, yeah.
No,
these can't because it's got numbers in it.
Yeah, those are just temperature. I've changed that all recently. But go to the top where it says skimmer full. I'll give you an example of why this is important.
Okay.
And again, this is the only way you can really do it. I have 3 fish tanks with 3 skimmers, right? Now, do I want to get alert for every single skimmer when it's full? No, I just want to know one of my skimmers was full. So that's why I made a virtual outlet.
I guess
for all of my
look
tanks.
At it, I guess.
Yeah. And it alleviates the need to put a bunch of switches on the dashboard. So, for instance, you're not going to see anywhere on my dashboard any switches except for one. You're not going to see any of my virtual outlets on there because I don't need them. They're all built into the email. However, of course, like I mentioned earlier, if you go to the dashboard, that's another story. I have all of my switches in there.
Okay.
And I have quick selects for things. But that's the one trick I can tell you about your system is you have a ton of switches.
I'm definitely going to do that.
And
I'm definitely going to do that.
Because of the amount of switches you have, like I see, for instance, you have SW full, S full, S. You could put that all in one virtual outlet.
Okay.
And call it full, for example.
Okay.
And then when you get that alert, you can then open your Apex, go, oh, well, this is the one that's full.
So
that's how I look at it. Now, again, I think Apex eventually is going to change the way in which we'll get alarms, and we'll be able to get multiple alarms at once, hopefully one day. And then all of what I just said kind of becomes null. But
let's hope.
For now, it's been a fantastic space saver.
So let me give you a plug. So if somebody wants to pay you to help clean up all their Apex stuff, will you do that for them?
Yeah. So if you go to my website, reefautomation.net, and you go to Neptune or even Hydros or even GHL, I have a little selection there that you can pay hourly for me to do these type of things for you.
Now, Derrick knows what's going on. That's for sure. 100%. Absolutely.
And I've had a number of people do that. I've done that for in the past, and it's worked out really well. And and I enjoy doing it. You know, it's fun for
Right.
me.
So what
But
else?
you got, like I said, you got a lot of switches in here,
Uh-huh.
which you can. I consider it calling it consolidation.
I see.
You know, um, a lot of consolidating can be done with virtual outlets. And the greatest part about consolidating with virtual outlets is you can defer each one of those virtual outlets. So that way you can get multiple alerts at once if you defer them by a second, for example.
Okay, now you're deep into the weeds. All right.
You asked.
No, I hear you. I hear you. And you know, we'll zoom this, you know, another time, I think, in order to see what you can do to kind of make some of that stuff happen so I can still understand what it is. All right, so you said there's another one. What other thing would you do in my stuff?
Well, you got a lot of you got a lot
Just
of
say
empty
it.
stuff here, which you already kind of mentioned.
Yes.
I don't know what some of this stuff is.
Right.
And these waves, you know, here's another perfect example. You have
Mm-hmm.
all your waves kind of stacked together here.
Mm-hmm.
You can consolidate them into one wave. You know, there's a number of things you can do.
Let me ask you this. So, is there a way, I'm thinking there probably is, that I could create a virtual outlet that would aggregate all my waves errors? So, if I get an
Yes,
error on
yes,
any
yeah,
wave,
yes,
basically, it would say I got, and then I could go try to figure out which one is the issue. Because you're right. The thing that I do on this, there's two things that I do. One is I have it up there because I'm looking to see whether or not it's got an error, and then I occasionally do look to see, you know, what they're kind of, but it's not all the time, you know, what their flow rate is
right. And that's kind of what I was
at a certain
saying with the
time.
wave,
But that's why they're at the bottom too.
templates. Yeah, the wave templates just take up a lot of room, which again, I think they're informative, but is it something you look at daily? I don't think so. So
This is a
that's where
good
you can
segue.
consolidate,
This is a
you
good
know.
segue. Okay, so now I'm going to get to a pet peeve that I have that I think we're basically jumping through hoops to fix something that I think it maybe could be addressed in the interface. And I know there's lots of people who talked about Neptune should have like tabs, or I can have different desktops, or all of these other things, which can be quite complicated. But what I would like to see, let me show you this. So here's an example of a dilemma, right? On the left is basically what my iPhone would look like. And you'll see that, you know, a lot of the most popular stuff is up top, right? But those other things like
Hmm.
those dose are now in a weird spot compared to their priority when they were on the other side. And again, here you can see it's just all scrambled. And so, you know,
So I have a trick to do that too, by the way.
okay, well, just hang on one second. Let me finish my thought.
Okay.
Okay, so, you know, I would love to see that when I'm on my phone, I have my phone's way of looking at it, right? And it may have less outlets, it may have less, you know, things, but on the phone, it's one setup, right? Or my mobile device, whatever it is, it's a one-column mobile device like my phone. On my iPad, which I use a lot in portrait mode, right? I want to have that have a different setup with the stuff on the top that's most important. And then
Right.
obviously when I go to this, I have this mode. And I would just love that if the interface would know, hey, look, you're in a 3-column mode, use the 3-column template. You're in 2-column mode, use a 2-column template. You're in 1-column, use the 1-column template.
Well, you know better than most that logistically, I'm trying to figure out how they would do that. They would have to have a way of knowing what the product is in
No,
order to connect somehow, wouldn't they? I
no.
mean, it would need to know if it's mobile or not, right? It would need to know
You
because
know
how would it
whether or not
differentiate?
you're in 3 columns, 2 columns, or 1 column.
So you're saying it
So
would
you
somehow save your setting, your
you
column
basically
setting
define it.
per
You
device.
define it. You define this is my 1-column setting, this is my 2-column setup, and this is my 3-column setup.
But doesn't it work off a web like a web server right now?
Mm-hmm.
So how would it know? How would it know? I mean, I'm logistically thinking about how they would do that. I think it's a
Look,
great idea.
I think it's entirely viable, but look, maybe I'm just a marketing guy with a very old computer science degree and doesn't know very much. Okay, that's entirely possible. Look where I'm sitting. But that would be, I would think, a baby step to getting towards something that's more usable that way. And Devin's here saying, because Devin does this stuff, CSS based on screen width, all kinds of tricks, easy on the web, all of this. I don't know,
Again, I'm just thinking logistically how it would be possible, but I think it's a great idea.
I don't like comments like the last one there, easy on web. Nothing is easy, okay? Especially when you're dealing with the amount of variables that we have with devices and everything, as you said. But that said, I think there is a way. Whether or not it gets tackled that way ultimately, I'm not on the inside anymore. I don't know, but it clearly has a dilemma in usability, right now.
Well, what I definitely think it needs, and we've discussed this in the past, and I think they're running with the new setup this way, is multiple aquariums and allowing someone such as myself, and I know there's other people that are like me, where you can pick fish tank. It shows all your stuff on the fish tank. Show reef tank, shows all your stuff on the reef tank, even though it's coming from the same Apex.
Yeah,
there's gotta be a way to do that.
Yeah, I obviously, when you look at the, well, we go in the software. We'll flip around kind of what we're talking about. We can talk about that too. So, all right, first of all, let's do a little housekeeping here. If you guys, liking what you're seeing. I was going
to give you this tip.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Go ahead, give me the tip.
This is a really silly tip, by the way.
Okay.
So how I do it, because I have so many things, is I separate them and then put like the time and something that I never look at between them. So that way I know where things are. So I'll put like...
Oh, when you're scrolling down, you're saying?
Yeah.
You know where to stop and go. That's the new top. Okay.
That's correct.
That's a good tip.
So if you look at my... Well, you don't have to now, but...
It's funny how many workarounds users do for, for user interface things.
You'll see, like, I have all of my temperatures grouped into one for fish tank. And then I have all my groups for something else. And that's how I know where things are. So if I can give any tips to everyone out there, if you're using something such as the clock, that's a good example, or you're using the measurement you never use, or the notes you might never use, you can use those as little kind of dividers.
Right.
And that's what I do.
Right.
So anyway, I just want to mention that.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Okay, so again, if you're liking what you're hearing on Real Reefing channel here with Terrence, and we're not usually doing home live streams that much. We're usually out on the road doing a lot of content and videos and stuff. You can go check out the rest of the channel if you've happened upon this, and give us a subscribe if you like it, like the the video if you like that. Definitely helps me out. And if you have any questions, feel free to interact in the comment section so we can address those. And if you want to come on the stream and just talk directly with Derrick and I, and kind of face to face and be on the stream, you're more than welcome to. There's actually a URL at the bottom. Don't be shy. I love doing it. It's fun to get people to interact and ask their questions. So, feel free to do that. It just takes a phone and a camera. I mean, it's nowadays everybody's got that.
Yeah, you can use your phone.
Yeah, you can use your phone. Exactly. You don't need a special app or anything. So, question from Sammy31D: how are people running separate systems now off one Apex? Well, they basically are segregating things on the dashboard, and naming things in such a way that they can kind of discern between one tank and another.
Yeah, labeling.
Yeah,
it's just labeling. If you go back, Sammy, and rewind when he showed off my tank, or unless he wants to go back to it, you'll see everything that I have says F- for fish tank, O- for office tank. That's how I know what everything is.
Right, exactly. So, and yes, Sammy, you can just add more EB8s, EB832s to get more outlets and whatnot, and put it in another room. And you can. There's a lot of ways you can do it, but
I have a lot of USBs running in my attic. So yes.
Yeah, a lot of Aquabus connections up there, huh? Okay. Yeah. All right. So, okay. So I think our next discussion is going to be on. So, and by the way, guys, we're going to chat briefly about Derrick's and I's thoughts on the new A3 Apex line. That'll be coming up in a little bit. In the interim, we will be talking also about the releases that just happened. So the Apex operating system and the iOS app have both gone through a revision. I look back in the history and in the release notes, and it's interesting because you can see, I think they missed one of them, because my last one I'm pretty sure was in March, not in January. I don't, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
they must have had something in between then,
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
think.
I think so. But if you go take a look, there was 4 last year, 4 the year before, and sometimes I think they squeak other ones in between those. There's 2 in 2019, 2 in 2018. So between 2 and 4 times a year, there's a major release. They store up a lot of different things because there's a lot of testing that has to go on, obviously, or any product where you've got this many customers with this many touch points and
Expensive
whatnot.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, people don't want the hydros to happen to
Yep.
them.
Yep. And so one of the things, advice to give, first of all, when you're doing an AOS update, be home. Don't do it when you're away because not everything comes out peachy all the time, right? Things happen. And this is with any kind of firmware type of update on any product that you have. You can have disconnects and you can brick stuff and everything. But the system on the Apex is really good at helping prevent any of that stuff happen. And it's not any kind of thing that you really need to worry about, but it's just good practice to do it at home when you're around your tank. And you basically hit the button and it goes away. Now, they don't release this to everybody all at once. It's kind of it's very similar to Apple, and others do this as well. They slow release the products out so they don't get hammered all at once. And also, if there's any kind of an issue, they can have a little bit of a catch before everybody has it. But in this update, they've obviously updated the AOS for the new Apex, for the new sensors, which we'll talk about in a second. Liquid level sensor, multi-surface leak detection sensor. They put in some changes into the calibration. I don't know exactly. It just says streamlined and enhanced. I haven't tried it yet. Have you? I don't think you have had a chance to. You did?
Yeah.
Oh, look at you. Really?
I checked everything here.
Wow. Look at you doing your
it's not,
homework.
yeah, it's not much different. It's just a little simplified, and I don't know if you can, what am I saying? You work for Neptune. What? Anyway, when you were there, it would say, put this thing in there, and then it would say 7, and then push next, and put this, and push next. Now it's just one big it's just one like checklist kind of thing. And it's just next, next, next. That's really it.
Okay.
I mean, it's not much different. But streamlined is the right word.
Okay.
It's definitely streamlined.
Same thing with any of the dashboard measurements and notes. They've streamlined kind of how the UI works there, which is really nice. It's important to note that Apex Fusion is still completely web-based, even if you have the app, right? It's the app is basically a shell for the web-based portion of it. Editor, this is one, the editor, they added some stuff, and we'll go take a look at that in a minute to the editor. But interestingly, on social media this week or last week, when it released, somebody said, well, I see the template stuff, but I can't find any documentation on it. What's changed? And somebody said, well, it's just the template stuff. And then Russ, who most people know, Russ is the godfather of Apex. Russ said, oh, no, there's a lot more enhancements there to the code editor, but I couldn't find any documentation anywhere, and I couldn't see it. And you said that you couldn't see it. So if anybody knows, or if
unless
Russ
he's
is
talking
watching,
about,
because Russ might even be watching,
unless,
just lurking out there.
unless he's talking about the coloring is definitely different now, which I guess could enhance the experience because you know what kind of thing is which now. But I don't see anything else except for the templating.
Maybe some of the working with mobile works better now, maybe, because I know there were some quirks in that before with like copy paste and lines and going up and down and stuff is kind of wonky.
They still haven't added a comment line, which would be nice.
I know. They that's been something that people ask for so many years. It's crazy. It's come up so much.
You'd be surprised how important that is.
Yeah.
Especially if you have.
You don't have to tell me. I understand.
For people that don't know what that means, it's allowing you to take one of the lines without having to delete it completely and just basically disabling one of the lines. And what's great about that is if you're ever working on your tank and you need to not get specific alerts for a couple hours, you can just comment out a line, and that way everything runs the way it should, and then you can just bring it back.
I get it. But we'll go take a look at that in a minute. Devin says predictive coding, which is more or less what it is. It's very similar to how Excel formulas kind of work in a similar way. And then clock configuration. I guess there's something there. Which
I didn't
is just
notice
kind of,
that.
and I
I
didn't
don't
know
have
that
a
there was an
flow.
error with the flow thing. I didn't know that, and then they support now the logging for the magnesium HANA checker
Hmm.
in the system. So that's what all this stuff is, and then let's see. I hate having to go back to this. Here we go. See, then I went ahead and I ran the update, and it wasn't all rainbows and puppy dogs for me. I get panicked first of all when I run an update. At least for me, it seems like every time after I run the update, it comes back and it tells me the Apex is disconnected.
Really?
Yes. And now I get why it's doing it because it's still restarting the Apex. And for whatever reason, it can't find it. I don't know exactly. But I start panicking and then I go to local and it kind of half loads in local and then kind of loads. And then all of a sudden, everything's hunky dory again back in Apex Fusion. But it is a little disconcerting if you do happen to see that. It is going to come back alive. It's just restarting. Maybe it's something in
It
my
does take a
system.
while.
Yes, it
Like
does.
when I updated yesterday, I got all these alarms going off and all this crazy nonsense, and it
Yep.
probably took about 10 minutes.
Yep.
But yeah, everything for me, at least in this particular case, went perfectly, as it always has for me. I presume yours is hardwired. Yours is not wireless, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it. Anyway, there's that. That was one issue, and the other issue, and this has happened to me a few times. Also, I let Paul know about it, and I think I let people know about it inside too. The last time I updated when I was still working there, is my well, first of all, there's a bunch of FMM updates that are going to need to happen. So if you have a lot of FMMs, you're going to have to update the firmware on all
Oh,
of
that was
those,
fun.
and that takes forever. Okay.
That was fun.
Yes. Exactly.
But
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I got to tell you guys, the buzzer feature now that is on the FMMs is huge. I know it seems very minor to some. For people that have a lot of FMMs,
Yes.
it's huge.
Yes.
This is a huge thing.
Yes.
Anyway.
Okay. So the obviously I've still got a couple of old modules in here that aren't here anymore, like a display and a one link, whatever.
Man, I need to come over. This is atrocious.
I know it's sad. I know, but that's why we're on here, because I'm just paying my dues here, just letting everybody see. Like I said, the cobbler whose children have no shoes. But one of the things, my iota Seche pump that I have on my skimmer, the last couple 3 times that I've updated my Apex, it does not come back online. Usually, if I power cycle it, it will come back on. The last couple of times, at least I think that's what I did. I tried power cycling it today, did not come back online. I don't know what's going on yet. I have to dig into it. You've heard that problem?
Yeah, I've heard multiple people have issues with the Seche iota. I don't know if this particular issue is similar, but yeah, I read it all the time. There's only been one time I've used iota back in the day, and it worked really well for me. But yeah, I don't know. It could be a firmware issue in the Seche, maybe. Have you tried looking at your firmware on the Seche?
I don't know. I'll have to, like I said, I don't know. I'll have to go take a look. Question asked, you take down your last stream. I was looking for that magnet cleaner you used. It was a Flipper Edge Max. The stream should still be out there. I don't know. I have to go look. I hope it didn't get any copyright thing. I don't think I played any music or anything, but should still be out there. Plus, I did a review on it. It's like the first video I did on this channel, so you can go out and take a look at that. Anyway, so that I still have to fix and do something with that. Now, we were talking about the coding, and so I have to do.
Does yours have that now?
So when you do this, you basically go here if. Right.
It's really neat. It is pretty cool.
Yes, it is pretty cool. Now, I did hear from a super geek out east from Dynamic Tank, Mark out there. He said it was cumbersome now or got in his way, which I can see probably that for some people. It's kind of weird popping up, but I think it's a big improvement. But it's also one of those things that, my personal opinion on this is, this stuff should be so far buried that like 2% of the people end up using it anyway. You know what I mean? 3% of the people. You should. Yeah,
I guess
most of the stuff that you have
to turn it off and on.
No, I get it. What I'm saying is just the average guy should not be having to do some of the average things, down, in that methodology. You should not have to do like your alert thing you just showed, right? I mean, you shouldn't have to do those hoops necessarily. There should be something, and it'll evolve and get there. And, we're a small market, and, it takes time to develop these kind of things. So,
Well, I like it because for the longest time, I didn't know how to do day of week. I kept typing it in wrong.
yeah.
And then I was like, oh, it's DOW.
And that is a good point too. Yeah, that's all the syntax, right? And that's what's so beautiful about Excel, right? Excel formulas do the exact same thing. You can't remember which thing comes first or second, or what the the syntax
And
is.
even with closed and open, or
Yeah.
outlets, a
Yeah,
lot of people
is there
want
an equal or there's not an equal? Or,
right.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great
I agree.
improvement.
I agree that
And that's
absolutely.
why it's only in the advanced setting, right? So if you're going into the advanced,
right.
you should know what you're doing at that point. At least have a general idea what you're doing.
I think it's super helpful and definitely an improvement.
No.
Absolutely. I think that's it I've got on. Did you have anything else from you on the update? You think everybody should do it?
Yeah, I mean, why not? There's nothing that, again, the FMMs is huge for me. So for those that don't understand what I'm saying, the FMMs have a buzzer now in them.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, they always had one, but
Right.
now they've opened up the possibility to program it. So
Right.
now if you have an FMM in another room, like your mixing station, you can have a buzzer that'll alert you if something's happening.
Here's one, for instance, right here. Right.
It's very annoying, which is good. It's an annoying noise.
Yeah.
But it's perfect for what you need it for.
Correct.
For me, I have 9 FMMs in my system, 2 of which are in my fish tank room where I don't have a display, or not fish tank room, my fish tank.
Right.
Where I don't have a display, and it'd be nice to get an alarm if I'm in the family room,
Yep, for sure.
And that's what it's for.
No, for sure. I think it's definitely something that's nice to have it come around, for sure. 100%. All right, let's move on. Keep things moving here. Let's talk about the iPhone iOS app. Okay. Ta-da! Look at that, Derek. Isn't that awesome?
I have some gripes with it, but we can discuss that in a few
I'm
minutes.
talking about my setup. Now
your setup's awesome.
Up, you get the little thing. Oh, yeah. Self-produced. I don't even have somebody helping me produce the stream, man. It's all just happening right here.
Oh, we miss Vincent.
Yeah, I know. I do miss, just being able to give a stream and not have to think about all those things going wrong. That's
it's a lot of work. People don't realize.
Oh, yeah. Just so you guys know, there's monitor here, computer here, soundboard over here. Obviously, this and this. There's just a lot of things going on. Then the iPhone, of course.
And my only problem was my camera would just disappear after 30 minutes.
Yes.
I fixed that.
Yes.
Thank God.
Okay, so this is the iOS app, and as I said before, for people to understand, the iOS app kind of sits above, what you see in the web view, right? And this is the new beta version of the iOS app, right? So the iOS app itself, most people will see that. Okay, still today. Okay, it's a little bit different in that it has that new header across the top, which also can be a little consternation for some people because it takes up more real estate. But you can go in and set it up, and I'm sure there's a setting in here somewhere, isn't there, for where you turn it on? I can't remember where it is.
Yeah, it's in the main settings. Yeah,
there it is. Beta UI, right? So there you can see, boom, boom, boom. You turn on the beta UI. Now you have that beta UI. Now down here in the bottom right corner, you can't see where I'm tapping, but it basically brings up the new.
That's my biggest gripe, right? What you just did.
Oh,
But
really?
Again, I can't stand it.
Really?
I'm so upset with that. I've told them, I don't know how many times. Do you know how many times I'm swiping down on my system and I accidentally hit that? It drives me crazy.
Sorry, I just accidentally logged myself out.
That's okay.
I can't exactly.
But you see where I'm going with this, right?
Oh, well, the thing is that I
if you
find
accidentally hit the top, it comes in every time.
What do you mean if you accidentally hit the top?
Okay, so start swiping. There, you just did it.
That's what you mean?
Yeah, I accidentally do that when I'm trying to swipe down or swipe up.
Interesting. Probably lurking out there on this stream is probably Joe, who is, on the iOS side, basically the key developer for the iOS app. So he's probably lurking, or he will watch this back, I can assure you, and hear your feedback, because Joe is really good about hearing end user feedback and listening to it and trying to understand how people actually use things. So
I mean, you see the arrow in the lower right-hand corner, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that should enable it and disable it. There shouldn't
Okay.
be anything else.
Fair
That's
enough.
how I look at it.
Fair enough. And, I'm hoping this advances, fairly soon. And I think I put a post up on social media a little while back. Now, especially with the new operating system from the new iOS coming out here in, I guess, weeks, you'll be able to pin app kind of widget stuff to the home page now. So developers will be able to take stuff like this and pin it to your home screen. Oh, man, that's where this needs to go.
That's going to be huge.
And, baby step, because this has been around now for quite some while. I wish that we could just choose what I can put into that screen down there for now so that I can just look at this page and not have to look at the other page. But with time, it'll come, I'm sure.
And again, it comes back to the whole multiple aquariums thing. I see that the ability is in there.
Correct. That's what you see down here with.
I think that's going to be a big thing for a lot of us. I don't know.
Aquarium details.
You used to visit a lot of commercial and stores and so forth, and I don't go to many. I presume they only have one Apex. Am I mistaken in that assumption?
No, they don't usually just have one Apex. They have quite a few Apexes usually, but they do have some Apexes that'll be on multiple tanks, like 2 or 3 tanks. There's no doubt.
I think, again, we've had this conversation for many years. I think having one Apex to control a whole system is that's how it is with my home automation stuff. We have one brain that controls multiple apartment buildings, for example. Not buildings, apartments. It's just that's how I'm used to it.
Right.
Having an Apex having a separate brain for every single thing, while it probably
it's a redundancy thing for sure. And from a cost perspective, again, I'm not there selling the stuff anymore, so I don't really have any kind of vested interest to say something other than what I believe. When you're talking about aquariums, there's no decent aquarium that costs less than $1,000 really that somebody is going to want to monitor and control and everything else. As far as once you get all the livestock in it and your time and everything else, right? And so, especially with a junior now coming out, to not spend $300 to monitor every one of those tanks just seems kind of weird to me.
Right, but there's a caveat to that, right? You're going to have the juniors, right? Let's say you have 6 juniors, just as an example. The app doesn't really currently support a way of switching them very easily.
Oh, there's no doubt. I think there's an evolution that needs to take place. There's no doubt that I think that the UI stuff that they're doing and that Joe's doing and everything is the right direction to go on, or to go toward. As far as equipment, though, the place where I think it's okay is really to where you're talking about. I've got my tank. And I've got a like a little frag tank next to it. And all I want to do is my temp and my pH on that little frag tank. And I want them to come up in separate windows or what have you. Then I'd go, okay, I kind of get it. Or my quarantine tank that I happen to have,
Yeah, but this is where, again, I think the Hydro shines. Because they do have the collective. They do have that ability in which you can have multiple brains.
In theory, I think it's a great idea. I haven't used it to know in practice, and I don't know what all the other potential pitfalls may or may not be. In theory, it's an interesting approach to doing it because of this. So,
but that's what I'm going. That's where I'm going with the Apex side of things.
Sure.
If they had the ability to allow multiple brains to talk to each other in some fashion, I think that would be a big upgrade. I think that would be really nice to see. And then, yes, you can see someone like myself who has one Apex controlling so many things that's going to go out and buy 2 or 3 more Apexes so that I can have one for my fish tank. I can have one, and they're all redundant and they're all talking to each other.
No, it makes it like I said, in theory, it makes total sense. 100%.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying.
So some of the other changes in the app, one change is they added wallpaper behind, kind of interesting. I already, left a message and chatted with somebody about it felt weird to me not to be able to put my own in because people love their aquariums and love their corals and everything else. So it seems kind of weird not to have like another. It's great to put preset ones in for people that don't, but just another one just said, put mine in there.
Well, what if that's your rainbow acra? What if you have that one?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I get you. I get you. But yeah, so they updated the iOS app. Not a whole lot of things. One of the things I will say about updates, though, is although you may not see a lot in the, and this is with a lot of different products, obviously, this is not unique to Neptune Systems. You won't see all of the minor things that have been changed or tweaked, that developers go in and fix. The word surreptitiously is probably not a good word, but there's definitely things that always get fixed that are not listed out there. So, getting a new version of software, especially one that's been tested and thoroughly gone through something like the Insiders program that Neptune Systems has, is a good idea to update. I totally endorse that. It hasn't just been tossed out there without a lot of looks at it and a lot of work on it. Okay. Whew. What else are we doing here? Okay, we don't. And nobody wanted to join. This is interesting to me. This is a good social experiment. A lot of people who just who are just so afraid to come online and have their face show. They
You know what? That's the thing. When I
there.
first started, I don't know about you, but when I first started doing this, I was scared to death, man. My first couple videos, if you look at,
I
was
know.
nervous.
For sure.
First live stream, the first live stream I did with you, I was nervous.
No, for sure. It's the way it is.
It's
definitely the way it is.
Once you do it a few times, though, you get comfortable, and it's fun at that point. It's fun to talk about reefing.
Especially, it's something you love. When it's a topic you love and things that you enjoy and people you enjoy talking to, to them about. You're 100% for sure. Okay, so now let's get to what we were going to talk about, which is the latest and newest Apex. For those of you that hung out, and you can hear from Derrick and I what our thoughts are, on this. And so, obviously, these products are not done in 2 months or 6 months. There's a lot of time and thought and everything is put into bringing together a product and putting it on the market. So a lot of what we're going to see here and that we're talking about here is stuff, obviously, that that I worked on before I left the company. So I'm intimately familiar with a lot of aspects of it, but I want to kind of talk about it as a consumer, because as an Apex consumer before I worked for Neptune Systems, and I'm going to for a long time be an Apex consumer now that I've left Neptune Systems. So, I want to kind of...
And he's going to buy everything from me.
Yeah, so Derrick does sell Neptune equipment, if you are so inclined. So the A3 series of Apex controllers, interestingly enough, the naming, obviously, of the Apex was done, before I got to Neptune Systems. And when we came out with the product in 2016, there was a lot of discussion, do we come up with a new name or what have you? And, my contention, then and still today is that the Apex is the Apex. It's the Corvette is the Corvette. You can go down the line of all the different types of products or companies that have it. The iPhone is the iPhone, right? You don't come up with a completely new name, but you come up maybe with a way to delineate between them. So when we did the Apex in 2016, it was just the Apex. It's just the new version of the Apex. And, of course, everybody glommed onto it's a 2016 Apex, and that's not necessarily the greatest thing. And, when you now have a third version of the product, it becomes really easy now. And I was like, yeah, why don't we just do like Corvette does? And Corvette has the, C3, edition, the C4, the C6, the C7. I think they're on the C8 now of the Corvette, and everybody kind of knows what you're talking about. And so... that is what they ended up getting named. Obviously, the final decision on that happened after I left the company, but that is kind of why they're named this way, and then delineated by kind of their level in the line. And so there's a Pro, there's an Apex, and there's an Apex Junior. So the Apex Junior is something that evolved when I was there. We did the Elmo with Bulk Reef Supply, where Ryan had wanted a monitoring-only product that'd be very easy for people to set up, and we came up with something for him that had float switches on it and temperature probe, and allowed people to get into the ecosystem and to have a something that could help them out. And this is the evolution of that, really, into a mainline product, and also fills a niche that was left behind when the Apex Junior OG was not there. So anyway, it comes with the it comes with an optical sensor, which yes is not of Neptune Systems' invention. So what? It has a pH probe, it has a temperature probe, and it has the existing solid surface leak detection probe. So yeah, I think this is a great decision to put this out there for people because it allows them for $300 to basically not have catastrophes on their tank. It's awesome in my opinion. What's your thought, Derrick?
I'll start with the good, and then I'll discuss my gripes,
Okay.
if there are really any gripes. This is a fantastic product that Apex has developed for a number of reasons. If anyone knows how Apex works, when you buy one Apex device, you end up buying the whole. Now, not maybe not as much as I have bought, but it's such a great product because you spend, was it $300? You
Yes.
spend $300, you get a taste of what it's like to have a controller. It's not necessarily a controller, it's a monitor, but it has the full capacity and ability in which to add all the Apex to it. And therefore, I find it to be a terrific product in that regards. Is you're going to get the taste, and then guess what? You're going to want this, and then you're going to want this, and then you're going to want this. And I think it's a fantastic product because it gets you that entry level into Apex and seeing how great the Apex actually is. So for that regard, I think it's a fantastic product. Um, my concern, well, there's two concerns. The first concern is it doesn't come with any outlets whatsoever. Now, again, it kind of I guess defeats the purpose of what I just said, but it would be nice if it had one outlet, maybe two outlets in some fashion, right? That's my only gripe. It is Wi-Fi only, and everyone knows if they watch my channel how much I love Wi-Fi. I
Yeah.
do
So
not like that.
let me come in there on this. So first and foremost, yes, if you have a a crowded Wi-Fi environment in a very busy apartment building or business or whatever it may be, almost any Wi-Fi product with an embedded Wi-Fi is potentially going to have issues. I'm sure you find this in your automation stuff quite often.
All the time, every day.
Exactly.
Yes. That's all I do every day.
And so this would not be the product to buy if you were in that environment for that reason. Now, at $300 is an incredible price point. Obviously, this is a razor and blades kind of setup for Neptune Systems, and so they're possibly, I don't know, sacrificing margin to to make this happen, and adding the networking port to the product. There's a real estate issue most likely, and you look at the bottom of that. And it's just cost. Every time you add something else, it adds cost.
Of course.
And
no, of course.
So
I'm just saying that's something.
If you're making a decision
unfortunately,
to bring, the vast majority of people use Wi-Fi, whether we like it or not. Probably 90+% of the Neptune systems use Wi-Fi. And so
I know it's incredible.
So if you raise the cost for everybody, right? It's my gripe with Ecotech pumps, right? Putting Wi-Fi or the wireless stuff in it since the day.
Well, with anything,
since the day of time,
that's all I see on these forums is so many people upset that their system had an issue, and it's always almost 98% of the time network related.
Yep.
And it's always because someone from the ISP decided to change their SSID.
Keep the stream going. I'll be right back.
Okay. And it's like Wi-Fi, and you got to understand, as a I've been doing IT and home automation for 20 plus years, and I would say on a daily basis, guys, I get calls about networks, and I go out there, and I swear there was a couple months ago, I went to a house and someone installed a piano in their house, and lo and behold, the piano had a Wi-Fi router in it, and that Wi-Fi router, if you guys are familiar with routers conflicting with each other, it was basically having trouble communicating because you had two routers trying to compete with each other. And it was a nightmare because me and my installers didn't have a clue what was happening. We went around the whole house, we did Wi-Fi testing, and lo and behold, it was a piano in the living room that was causing their their computers to stop connecting to the internet. And it's things like these that when you have a hardwired connection, yes, with a router and a piano in this particular situation, yes. If you had both of those and they were both hardwired, you'd still have the same issue. But the point I'm making is that anything Wi-Fi, you cause a risk. And I don't see a problem with Wi-Fi on a telephone or on a cell phone, sorry, or on a computer. But when it comes to, let's just say 300 gallons of standing water in your living room, that, let's just say, one of the Wi-Fi devices decided that it's going to keep something on, right? And let's just say that's a pump, and let's say you don't have a safety measure, that's 300 gallons going all over your living room. So the point I'm making is, when you've been in the business like I have, in the networking business, and you see all these weird Wi-Fi issues, and it's always interference, or the neighbor did something, or an ISP being Cox, Comcast, those people just doing something that you don't know is going to happen. All I can say is, having a hardwired, at least you know that it was something potentially that you did and not someone else. Let's just put it that way.
Okay,
That's
so
what I'm going with this.
yes, no, I totally get you. Okay, yeah, way to go. And Antonio, okay, Antonio is about the same age as me. So Antonio, go for an hour and a half trying to keep the water flowing and not have the water flowing. So that's all I'll say about that. But thank you, Derrick, for keeping the stream going.
Of course.
And to your point about outlets, one of the things I will say is that you don't have to go to a $280. I mean, I think this is the part that I didn't hear much with the announcement, so I wanted to throw it out there to people. There is an Energy Bar 4 that is available.
A bunch of them. Yeah.
And they are very handy for a couple of reasons. Number one, they are all relay operated. I mean, the Energy Bar 832 is as well. Energy Bar 8 is not, but it's not made anymore. The Energy Bar 4 also has a very high current outlet on it as well. But more importantly, it's inexpensive, right? I haven't looked lately. Maybe Derrick, you can go pull it up and tell me, but I think it's probably around 120 bucks.
30. Yeah, I think it's 130.
130 bucks. So when you talk about, Derrick, you needs at least one outlet. Again, getting people to monitor their tanks and not have to spend $400.
You know where I'm going with this. I'm looking at competition. That's all I'm saying.
Hey,
I'm looking at competition.
Look, we for sure, totally, you can get all of that, right? And if you want to get a plastic Chinese Wi-Fi bar to turn your stuff off and on, and I don't work for Neptune anymore. I'm not going to put the security of my system, based around that, and that's what you get when you get,
You're absolutely 100% correct, and I hate what happened to most people that had the problem last week or 2 weeks ago, but I've been saying it since the beginning of time. Wi-Fi power bars are the wrong way.
It is the wrong way. It's the absolute wrong way. And so I don't see the apples to apples there. If the guys from Hydros have a $130 wired, power bar available, more power to them, because that would be the way to go. So I don't see that they have a competitive advantage simply because they have, a rebranded Chinese power bar. And that's what
you're
it
right,
is.
Because
it's certainly affordable for people. I get it, but I won't put myself at risk for that. So
no, totally agree. And that's, again, I'm just looking at it as, again,
and that's why they have a wired one now, right? They have a wired, bar from.
They had to make one.
Right, and that's why. And I understand the cost and everything else. But anyway, that's the Apex Junior. So so the other two Apexes, basically the Apex is what was the Apex EL, right? And so it comes with.
Right.
It comes with your Energy Bar 832, as you see there. I can't zoom in on that for whatever reason, but it comes with the 832. It comes also with an extra sensor, I believe. No, it comes with the same sensors, but it comes with the $300 8 outlet bar on it, and I think it's $600, right? So if you want to get outlets and you want all of those fancy features, do that. If you want to go somewhere in between, get the Energy Bar 4 with the Apex Junior. And then the the big thing with both of these is that they have built-in FMM ports now, and that's really the big change in all of this is the integration of the FMM ports. The Apex EL did not have that at all, so there you go. And giving those extra probes with it is an upgrade over what the Apex EL was. So, in my opinion, the Apex now version is actually has actually gone down in price because it's including more features and more probes, sensors than it did before. So that is absolutely a good thing when people talk about, oh, everything goes up in price. Well, in my opinion, this did not.
Well, that's just everything in general. That's not
Sure.
just.
But I mean, in light of everything that's going on, this could have been a $650 or $700 product, especially with adding on the new probes that they did.
Mm-hmm.
So you get 3 of those connections. 2 of them are used by the ones that come with it, and then you can add another one in there, which we'll discuss here in a second. The Apex Pro, which now Apple has given us the marketing.
Apple.
Apple. I'm gonna explain it. Listen, Apple has given us the marketing ability again to use the word Pro on a product without being embarrassed. So Apple started that up again, which I thought was funny when they did it. But now that they've done it, now it's a thing again. And now you can call a product the Pro model. And this one comes with a different leak sensor, which is a leak sensor that that's optical. And yes, it's used by others in the market. It's an awesome sensor. Works really, really well. They are really nice sensors. Spendy, but nice. And then the liquid level sensor. Now, the liquid level sensor, this is one that's interesting in that obviously this was being worked on when I was still at Neptune Systems as well. But the crazy part about it is that where's that level sensor? Is it on here? It's on the FMM thing. Let's see if I can find it.
There he is.
There it is. So it is, in fact, an OEM version and modified version to work with the FMM of the E-tape product that was out by Malone for quite some time. In fact, the first time I looked at this and wanted to integrate it, I believe it was in 2015. So I'd been trying to get this into the Apex ecosystem for a long, long time.
Wow.
And it finally got into it. It is an incredibly good product. Definitely, definitely worth whatever dollars it's going to cost because it lasts. It doesn't break down. It measures at such a small level you can't even believe it. Okay, when I was using it long before we really got into it, I can't reveal much, but I would show graphs to people inside Neptune Systems and go, look at my water level going down. And they'd go, wow, that's amazing. And on my desktop, if you might have seen 1 or 2 of those out there, but it is really cool, and it's going to have a lot of great uses, and I can't wait to see what I do and other people do with it. I'm definitely sticking the new version one of them, because I have other ones in mind that aren't obviously the release versions. And I have them in my water tanks, and they are super, super helpful because, I mean, for instance, when you see that graph going down in your RO tank, it goes down at a rate, right? And you can see a 7-day or that day, right? Obviously on your dashboard. But when you see that thing all of a sudden change its, slope, you can go, wait a second, what's going on here? And
right.
Because it's taking a measurement so often and it shows such a small increment. We're talking on mine, I mean, it had to be like 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters, of water, right? That it's every one of those little increments. Over the years, both myself on my own or at Neptune Systems or whatever, always people are looking out for water level sensors of different types. And there's plenty of them out there in the Arduino world. It's not a mystery, right? But getting one that can be, and we've modified or we've had the ALD, it's not the ALD, it's ASM, the ASM, and used ultrasonic sensors from the industrial world. People have used those all the time. Tenji and others use those, and they work really well, but they're super costly, right? You're talking $300 for the sensor, and then another thing for the for the module. Now, with your Apex, you're going to have 4 of these ports on here. It's going to come with one, and you're just going to be set. And again, a lot of money, but go out and try to buy this stuff individually, people. Seriously, people talk about the cost. Go try to buy one of those sensors. Go try to buy one of the other sensors. Go try to buy a couple of probes, 3 probes. Yeah.
So is the level? I haven't checked it because I've been waiting to get one for people that are out there that work for Neptune. Does it show you milliliters? Does it just show the measurement?
To be honest, let's go look on their page. I don't know how it ended up being implemented ultimately, but let's go take a look.
Well, I know someone who knows, Devin.
Yeah, Devin's special. So there's the graph, right? So that's what the graph looks like. And it looks like it's in inches and millimeters probably they probably have both for, overseas as well. And you can see the little graph there and animating and whatnot on your homepage, which is super cool. Super cool. So, I'm really excited about that. Now, are you going to update to the new one?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Okay, why is that?
I don't really need a darker gray controller. Mine works really well.
Okay.
And I have 9 FMMs, so think about it.
Right.
Actually, I have 2 FMMs in a box still that I could use.
So let's get to that in a second. So I got a bunch of questions coming in, which is good. Okay?
Oh yeah, I got some stuff I can say for sure.
I'm going back here, looking at the last few. So give me a second here.
So good.
Look, it looks like Vincent was even on here.
He was.
Yes, talking about fallbacks not for internet.
We miss Vincent.
Okay, and then we've got DJ Mike Fury is obviously a Hydros fan. That's awesome.
Yes, he is.
DJ Mike, I totally understand. I love brand affinity. So you go, man. Russell Adams asks, how would the Apex Junior compare to the Hydros X3? I don't want to get deep into that's not really what I want to do on the stream right now, but I'm sure Derrick can
I will do
break
that
down
in my stream.
Yeah, he can break that down. That's not really what we're doing here. Sammy31D says, I'm about a week on the LLS and I actually love it. It is a game changer, people. I'm telling you, when you have that and you see that data coming in, it's pretty awesome. Again, I want to get the released one, but what I've seen so far over my use over a year or so, it's pretty cool. Can't you use an ultrasonic sensor instead of an E-tape? Absolutely. I'm sure there's a way that you could make an ultrasonic sensor work. As I said, you can get an industrial version of one for like $300. Most of the Arduino stuff that you're going to see and other stuff is not going to have the resolution that you're going to want, or it's going to have to be mounted too far away from the water. That's not going to work for most people's uses. It's not going to live well in a salt environment. It's going to have issues with the oscillation of the water. There's all kinds of things that come into play. And I've tried a lot of this stuff even on my own just to play around with stuff. I got stuff over here still that I haven't even talked about that I'm going to play around with that is not in that area. Let's see here. The limitations with the Apex Junior. I do not believe that there are any module limitations, for instance, that there were with the previous Apex Junior. But the Apex guys, the Neptune guys can obviously fill in on that.
I'm pretty sure it's 100% compatible with every single thing that Apex makes. I'm almost 100% sure.
Right.
There's really no reason why. From what Paul told me, there's really no reason, unless there's a product I don't know about that's not compatible.
And here's a good point too, right? Is Sammy says, you know what, the Junior can actually run the Trident, and it's a mega win for hobbyists, and that's true. For $1,000, right? You're measuring everything that you need to monitor, and you can do something else with it if you want down the road. If you're bolus dosing your 2-part or what have you,
right?
You can.
I think the Junior is a great product. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. And Russell Adams says, I wish they could make the Trident work standalone. Yeah. Yeah. Understood.
I mean, sort of. I understand the reasoning, but why would
Nobody
you want to?
ultimately is going
Yeah,
to want to do that. It's especially if there was an extra cost, right? If it's like, okay, it's going to cost me now $150 more. You're like halfway to getting the junior. Why would you do that?
yeah.
From a market standpoint, it doesn't make a ton of sense. But these sensors, these level sensors come in super long lengths. I've got 2-foot high water tanks that hold
That's
100
crazy.
gallons. And so mine will basically 35 inch. It'll go right in there and give you a measurement all the way up. And you can also pair that up, obviously, with one of the optical sensors, the magnetic optical sensors, as a safety, right, in case one of them goes out or gives a false reading or whatever it is. It's definitely super cool. I'm really excited about this piece of tech.
Me too.
Yep.
Me too, for sure. Yeah. So I've been since they announced this, I've actually been trying to come up with, because you know me, I've been trying to come up with all the different ways I could use this, and what would I need it for? Let's put it that way.
Right.
And I've come up with a lot of them, but um, one of the things that I think is going to be great for me is I have 2 water mixing uh, bins. I have the salt and the fresh, and sometimes I have optical sensor on the bottom, and it lets me know when they're empty. But it would be nice to know, okay, it takes this long for my salt to depreciate.
Sure.
So I'm going to know this weekend I have to plan some time to do the salt.
Yeah.
That's just one example.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest thing for me, and I had this conversation with Devin actually, is putting it inside my roller mat. Now people are like, wait a second, why would
That's
you
great.
do that?
Yeah, because you can advance your roller mat based on the level.
Right.
You're instead of just an off and on like all the dumb standalone roller
Yes.
mats, you actually can do something a little bit different.
How about the fact that they break constantly? When I say they break, the roller mat or the roller stops going and it just overfills. Well, now you're going to know as it's getting higher, okay, let me go take a look at this. That's why I'm getting them, by the way. I'm getting them specifically for that.
And here's where I think a lot of companies miss the boat, right? Like roller mat companies, and some of them that I've spoken to in years past. It's like, why do you want to do everything standalone? A huge contingent of your customer base already have an Apex. Why are you gonna make them pay to have its own little controller box, its own little this, its own little that? It's like, just sell them the roller mat and have them pop in whatever sensors and pumps or whatever it is that they need to use. Put a drive motor on there that goes to the 24 volt. And then provide some code, or work with Neptune Systems themselves to create a connection and an Apex ready kind of setup.
Or Neptune should make a roller mat.
Yeah, so I mean, it's absolutely the case. I think it's a great thing. Now there was one comment here I have to address, because I always have to address this all the time because it's kind of a thing. Russell Adams says, I want to be the controller. Well, that's the beauty of having the junior along with the Trident, right? Is that you don't have to have it control anything. You can still be in complete control of everything, but now you've got all the information coming into you, 24/7, and you could still be the controller if you wish to. I might take issue with that there's both Derrick and I will say that there's probably things you still want to do, but I get it. Anyway,
but I've been trying to think. Yeah, I've been trying to think of all the different ways to use the sensor. Unfortunately, those are the only 2 I've come up with, because I can use optical sensors for just about everything I need.
Sure.
I personally, maybe someone can disagree with me, I don't see the need to know the level of my alkalinity container. I mean, if I have a sensor, when I know it's low, I know to refill it. Like, I don't.
Yeah, but here's the deal.
Know.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I believe that these particular E-tape sensors are going to be more resilient than any optical sensor out there, whether it's the previous model, the new model, whatever, and it gives you the information. Agree. So why not do it?
I've had to replace optical sensors a good amount of times, not a lot, but a good amount of times.
And you can, instead of moving your optical sensors where you have a high and a low and whatnot, in order to make decisions in what you're going to do on your aquarium, you now can just change the code to say, well, when it gets to this level, I want to do this and this. Oh, I want it to be a little bit more now when it refills. So, that's where I think it's definitely going to come in. But let's go back to so you're not going to get an Apex, the new A3, right?
No.
And I'm not either. And the reason is not because I don't think it's a great product. I think it's a great product.
No, I think it's a great product,
It's
too.
not made for existing Apex users, okay? The only one that's maybe made for existing Apex users is the Apex Junior, where you have an Apex and you also have one or two other controlled tanks that you're kind of hodgepodging together right now. And an Apex
a frag tank.
Dude, the value on the Apex Junior, right, is if you're already in the ecosystem, $300, I'm going to get 2 probes, the optical sensor. Right. It seems to me super straightforward. So I'm not going to get one for that exact reason, because I can just buy another FMM if I need more FMM ports. So that's pretty much it.
I will tell you, there's a couple of things. The first thing is I like the dark gray. I think it looks nice. I think it looks more professional. Not to say it never did, but I think it looks a little more beefier.
That's why it's called a Pro, buddy.
Yeah. I believe, and I think you're going to disagree with me, and it all comes down to cost, and I know you're the marketer guy, whatever. No salinity probe is in the probe anymore, Pro box. Now, it has a salinity port, and there's no salinity probe, even though it has always been in it.
So you know what's interesting about that?
And I know it's cost related, but still it's interesting.
This is one of the things I thought was funny and interesting about the fact that it's not included anymore. This is on the page now, okay? And take a look at what the #1 top big, like arguably the biggest bubble is, which is salinity. So I don't know who exactly made that graphic, but it's definitely kind of ironic. That the salinity is not included. I totally understand why salinity is not included, and it's not marketing nonsense. That the reasoning that they gave, which is more people will get utilization out of the other sensors than the salinity probe, because most people cannot successfully use, I would say many people cannot successfully use the salinity probe.
That's true.
And it just sits there either not being used, they don't trust it even when they should, and they don't really necessarily do anything with it. So if you're going to spend the money, I think this is a much better value for your money than that. And if you want to have the salinity probe, especially since the cost of everything's gone up, right? So the salinity probe now is $200.
Yeah, they're expensive.
So, and that's not, in my opinion, right? Because I'm looking at what's happening in commodities markets and foreign markets and everything else. That's not margin.
Including,
that's not margin. That's cost. And so if they had to pass that on to the consumers, you'd have $1,000 or more Apex. I don't think it's I think it's the right decision.
Yeah. The bottom line here, and I said this on forums, I've already talked to a number of people, is, and I would have said this to you privately also, the only thing I see for existing Apex users is a level sensor. Yes, the leak sensor is better built. I agree. The optical sensors look to be a little more robust, but for someone that has spent, I don't know how much money I've spent on my Apex, and there was a long lull between you leaving, hydros coming out, a lot of stuff happening, and Neptune kind of being quiet. And for the existing users, I felt kind of down.
Right.
I mean, I felt like, wait a second, didn't you guys come up with just something that existing users can go, wow?
Isn't that the awesome sauce of the Neptune user base, that they're just aggravated that they can't spend more money?
I didn't say aggravated. I said down.
Okay, down.
Different.
Okay, that they're down, that they're depressed because they can't shell out more money for new gear. Well, like I said, I think I think this level sensor, it may not seem like a lot to a lot of people. And again, all the naysayers out there are like, oh yeah, well, it's been out. You can go get one. You can make one. You can do. Yeah,
I don't listen to that
but
noise.
that's all nonsense. For the average user, this is going to be a big deal in terms of helping them understand what's going on in their aquarium, monitoring their aquarium, and having success with their aquarium, and that's what matters.
I mean,
and regardless of anything else, when you look at what Neptune Systems, Ecotech Marine, everybody's had to deal with, in recent years with the pandemic, and then being acquired, you know, and trying to come together as a new company, it's really difficult to try to put new product and stuff together. So hopefully, you know, this is, and I'll get ready to close on this because we're already coming up on 2 hours.
Wow.
And it's been a great stream. Thank you everybody for joining me. What I will say is that you know, I'm excited and hopeful to see some really innovative stuff coming out from them, well past the expected kind of things like integration between the ecosystems with a new WXM or something like that. My expectations are high that we're going to see some awesome stuff because, you know, there's lots of money supposedly pouring in and development.
A phosphate and nitrate
I want to
test,
see,
man?
yeah, I want to see the app happen faster. I want to see updates to the app faster. I want to see all this stuff happen because now it's not about, you know, small company with limited resources and all of these other things. So that's where my hope is. And I'm really looking forward to it. For you guys out there, again, I would have loved to have somebody join the stream, okay, but they didn't.
that would've
So
been cool.
I guess I'm going to have to give something away at some point, like Derrick does, in order to get people to come on, you know, to be
That's what I
live
had
with
to
me.
do for years.
You know, I get it. So maybe that's what I'm going to have to do. But if you guys enjoyed this, thank you for hanging out with us for this long. And please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends about it, share it around for me. I'd really, really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed seeing my setup and whatnot that's out there. Derrick, thank you so much for joining me. You know, in this endeavor.
Anytime.
And you're welcome out here at my place to wrap wires and fix Apex stuff anytime, any day of the week.
I would love to do that. I'd love to bring my bag of zip ties on the plane.
Yeah, so, you know, look forward to hopefully having you out this way. You can go to the aquarium again, you know, the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and maybe we can get
It's such a fantastic
some people to hook us up for some special stuff or something, okay? So all you guys out there, this is Real Reefing. Go check out the videos that are already out there. We will be down in Anaheim for the show for Reefapalooza this weekend on Saturday. And also at MACNA. Tell your friends, family, everything. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you again, Derrick, for being here.
Well, thank
Until
you very
next
much.
time, you know, there we go. That's it. See ya.